Welcome to Advanced TV Herstory, a podcast dedicated to bringing you the best moments in television or television storytelling that involve women. This podcast looks at great performances or women who pioneered the industry, or we've been known to go behind the scenes to better understand how the women's movement affected that which we saw on the tube. Knowledge is power. We know that there are excellent women in the field today to assume roles behind the camera and in front of it. And the more we know, the more we can demand parity in representation and pay. Advanced TV Herstory hopes you'll be part of the change so that the point of view of women is seen, heard, and understood in the present tense. I'm your host, Cynthia Bemis Abrams. Advanced TV Herstory knows you're curious about Rosie O'Donnell. Depending on your age, your questions range from who is she to what has Rosie been up to lately? And depending upon what you already know and your source of news, you might wonder what's the connection between Rosie O'Donnell and presidential candidate Donald Trump. This segment of Advanced TV Herstory seeks to answer all those questions about America's EveryWoman, Rosie O'Donnell. Why this is important is that it doesn't take a billionaire to put smart money on the fact that Rosie will be a participant in American dialogue well into the future. So let's begin at the beginning. Rosie O'Donnell got her start in stand-up comedy. She's a native of Commack, New York, which happens to be the town next door to my husband's hometown. Rosie is basically his age, so with that small connection, my view of her is that she's really pretty much just deep down plain folk. In the 80s, she was a refreshing change from other emerging and established comics. She was candid about aspects of her childhood, her mother's death, life in the suburbs, TV, and that made American women, in particular, appreciate her presence on TV. She had a few small roles in TV sitcoms, and you might remember she was the wisecracking third base person of the World War II women's professional baseball team, the Georgia Peaches, from A League of Their Own. She was Doris Murphy. And so alongside Madonna, Gina Davis, and Tom Hanks, Rosie's performance lives up to the movie's tagline, which is, "Once in a lifetime, you get a chance to do something different." 1992 was a long time ago, but Rosie is still going strong. And her lifetime consists of a lot of things and opportunities to do something different. She's an actress, comedian, writer, blogger, speaker, and entrepreneur who is known for her candor. In fact, when you hear about some of the instances when her candor rankled the establishment or the status quo, you have to think that Rosie, more often than not, is on the right side of her story. Sometimes she's just a few years ahead of the times. Let's look at the high-profile clashes that highlight her career. She is no stranger to controversy, or, in another way of thinking, she gives as well as she gets. In the corporate world, she'd be known as a change agent, and if she was a man, she may not have been pegged with nearly as much negative baggage as she has. From 1996 to 2002, Rosie's award-winning TV talk variety show made her a household name. Whether in her opening monologue or through her selection of guests, we got to know Rosie as EveryWoman. She shared her loves and losses, her crushes, and moments of awe. The show, its crew, and Rosie won multiple daytime Emmys in the talk show category during its run. Rosie's guests were occasionally brought into controversial topics, and whether they were prepared for it or not is another story. If unprepared, it was spun by the media as an ambush or dust-up. Rosie had opinions about guns, war, parenting, a whole host of topics that she felt didn't get discussed with nearly the intensity on American TV as they should. And she had 1,193 episodes of her very own talk variety show to work with, and many, including her, report that she was indeed burning out and losing her grasp toward the end of the show's run. Those final years, punctuated with politically charged rants or aggressive interviews with guests, earned her the reputation for being, quote, difficult to work with, which is a label that has been placed on many more women than men in this world. She was straddling the demands of her show and fame with her true values that had helped her get to her position, from her desire to create a loving, healthy environment for her family to delivering high-quality performances like those of her idols. Now, in 2007, her book, Celebrity Detox, Rosie writes that, quote, 6 years of celebrityhood had left me depleted, and I had to find myself, find my art, find my family again. I went off the air so that I could touch down on the ground, end quote. In 2016, is this book even relevant to media studies and our interest in celebrities? Yes. Is it relevant in understanding sexism in media? Yes. Because think about it. How many other women, whether they are in politics or not, can withstand the criticism for her opinions and perceived dust-ups with others? My answer, not many. So really, do yourself a favor and read or listen to Rosie O'Donnell's Celebrity Detox, published by the Hachette Group in 2007. The book does a great job of reminding us just how real Rosie is, even today, or even as she was in 2007. And I guess she hasn't changed that much, as we hear from her. She provides us context into her awe of Billie Jean King, Barbara Walters, and Barbra Streisand. She reveals the encouragement that she remembers from her mother, who died when her mother was young, as well as when Rosie was young, that a working-class girl could make it in America. And Rosie shares real encounters with celebrities. Very fun stuff. Quote, Billie Jean is the real deal. It's like befriending your teacher in a way. No matter how familiar she becomes to me, I will always slightly be mystified that I am near her. Rosie goes on to write, Billie Jean inspired me to try, for sure, walking onto the court with Bobby Riggs, a loudmouth, old man tennis player who hated everything Billie Jean was. He called her names, taunted her, teased her. He challenged her to a game of tennis. Now, this is end quote off of page 31. She goes on to write, he was her trump. Billie Jean's trump, only Riggs had actual talent. And then Rosie goes on to recount her memory of watching the Battle of the Sexes on TV in 1973. Learn more about the Battle of the Sexes, 1973, in a different installment of Advanced TV Herstory. Since Rosie's rise to celebrity, she has spent countless hours in King's presence, including watching tennis. By the time she had written Celebrity Detox, Rosie's initial feud with Donald Trump was history, and she recounts its beginning on page 143 of the book. Quote, the night of December 19th, Kel, that is Kelly Carpenter, and I were relaxing, watching TV, and on came Trump in a press conference about his benevolence vis-a-vis Miss USA and her expected recovery from an alcohol problem. I have a problem, she writes, with the whole notion of Miss USA, as it's defined and enacted by men like Donald, taking 20-year-old girls, parading them around on stage in bikinis, while he and a bunch of other old men give them a score, and if they win, then what? They become Donald's own doll for a year, his brand for 365 days, because he'd bought the pageant, which means, to me at least, he'd bought the girls, and buying people, especially young, nubile ones, who probably make you far more money than you pay them to do your bidding. Of course I have a problem with this. End quote. So that's where it started, and there's no need to go into the he said, she said details. This happened more than a dozen years ago. And remember that by then, the luster of beauty pageants had already pretty much worn off. Women saw through the rewards, the scholarships, all the good things that were supposed to come along with being known as a beauty queen. In fact, Delta Burke had been held up to a high standard as she, who, as just one of many pageant winners, had attempted to cross over into TV. The Designing Women star gained weight in the show's second and third seasons. And that entire episode, which was also heavily covered in the tabloids, is addressed in another segment of Advanced TV Herstory. With beauty and the tiara come high expectations. And Rosie wasn't having any of it. And once provoked, neither was Donald. In 2006, which is a decade ago, someone uploaded to YouTube an edited-down version of a no-holds-barred interview Trump gave Entertainment Tonight.
Well, Rosie O'Donnell's disgusting. I mean, both inside and out. You take a look at her, she's a slob. She talks like a truck driver. Rosie attacked me personally because I was very happy when her talk show failed. The other thing that failed, and this was a real monster, and everybody was suing her, was her magazine. Her magazine called Rosie was a total disaster. So I loved it. I gloat over it. I think it's wonderful because I like to see bad people fail. Rosie failed. I'm happy about it. She's basically a disaster. Well, she called me a snake oil salesman. And, coming from Rosie, that's pretty low because when you look at her and when you see the mind is weak. I don't see it. I don't get it. I never understood. How does she even get on television? I believe Barbara made a terrible mistake putting her on, and I think Barbara's probably paying a big price. If I were running The View, I'd fire Rosie. I mean, I'd look her right in that fat, ugly face of hers. I'd say, Rosie, you're fired. We're all a little chubby, but Rosie's just worse than most of us. But it's not the chubbiness. Rosie is a very unattractive person, both inside and out. Rosie's a person that's very lucky to have her girlfriend. And she better be careful or I'll send one of my friends over to pick up her girlfriend. Why would she stay with Rosie if she had another choice? She's trying to use ABC and The View to get even with me. But with me, we fight back. I'll probably sue Rosie because
if there's any doubt that he made those statements only once and then regretted them, well, there is no doubt. In fact, he doubled down on the controversy, reveled in it in a little bro chat with David Letterman on The Tonight Show.
What did you do?
Well, pretty much I went on various television shows and bashed Rosie O'Donnell.
There you go.
Believe it or not, that's...
What exactly started that? It had to do with the Miss USA thing, is that right?
Well, it did. She didn't want to have a nice young woman who had a little bit of a problem with drinking and other things to have a second chance. And she got on her show and went absolutely crazy. And I heard about it. Actually, Melania called me and said, you wouldn't believe what she just said. And I attacked her. You don't attack people, do you?
I mean, I would.
Seldom.
Yeah. And then have you talking to Rosie? Did you pick up the phone? Did she call you? You were going to sue her.
I've known Rosie for a long time. I've always felt to myself, she's a degenerate. She shouldn't. Wait a minute. She's not. No, but I really understand. I really understand her. I've known her.
You can't just say she's a degenerate.
Oh, really? Just watch her.
You can't say that.
Did you ever watch her act?
I like her. I think she's funny and smart. Here's the point.
I heard she doesn't like you.
Okay, let's take a deep breath or a shower or whatever you might need to remove those sounds from your head. If I were more of a cynic, I'd say that the feud was a staged setup of two cons who like to hear their own voices and think that because of their fame, their opinions matter more than yours or mine. Stoke the coals of controversy to keep your name on the nightly Entertainment Tonight show, to grab the paragraph in People magazine. But at what cost? I, and really all of America, okay, now that Miss Universe is involved, all of the world's womanhood, should give Rosie credit for, in that moment, calling out the pageant circuit for what it is and what it was at the time. Moreover, as the economics of the pageant industry had changed, even by the early 2000s, thereby allowing them to be bought out by a wealthy, lewd billionaire, her voice was essential, and Rosie had the bully pulpit to do it. So it was the right thing. And in 2016, maybe we respect her a lot more for spending a bit of her celebrity capital on that important issue at that time. Because when the TV show that bears your name runs nearly 1,200 episodes over 6 years, you spend a little, you earn a little. Like this wonderful bit with B. Arthur, who tells a story of Rosie pretty much being Rosie, a little unpredictable, but you just feel like there's a really, really good heart there. The Rosie who came from the Long Island suburbs, a few miles away from my husband's old hood.
And her brother came over and stood next to my table and sang the entire Maude theme.
In harmony.
Yeah, but your brother just came in for the oh yeah.
Yeah, he came in for the oh yeah.
You know, this is interesting because I was at a place last night down in the village called the Universal Grill.
I know it.
You ever?
It's nice.
Well, you know what they do? It's a wild, crazy place, kind of wonderful, where when people celebrate a birthday there, they don't sing happy birthday to you. They all get up and they sing the Maud theme.
Exactly. And not a lot of people know that ending part.
I know. Would you like to hear
No,
Rosie?
please, I couldn't.
I'll come in for the oh yeah.
You will? If you do the oh yeahs, I'll do it.
I'll do the oh yeah.
All right, hit it, John. 2, 3, 4. Lady Godiva was a freedom rider. She didn't care if the whole world looked. Joan of Arc with the Lord to guide her. She was a sister who really cooked. Isadora was the first raw burner. Aren't you glad she showed up?
Oh yeah.
And when the country was falling apart, Betsy Ross got it all sold up. And then there's more. Then there's more.
And then there's more.
And then there's more.
And then there's more.
And then there's right uncompromising, enterprising, anything but tranquilizing, right on more.
The book Celebrity Detox reads as a candid expression of the ups and downs of fame. And Rosie's fame, at the time she quit her show, was tied more to controversy and conflict than it was to her consistent delivery of a quality product. She cared a lot about many topics of importance to American life, but from a public relations perspective, the one that I hold, I would say that she was using the wrong tools or the wrong pulpit to express those concerns. Thus, she burned through her political capital, or her celebrity capital, I guess, quickly because she was using the wrong tools and methods for her messaging. Rosie withdrew from the spotlight, took care of her kids, and found balance. She invested in a cruise line that offers cruises for gay families. And then one of her childhood idols, a woman who defined perseverance and class in Rosie's eyes, asked her to join the well-known TV show, the daytime show, The View. Barbara Walters, accomplished journalist and an icon of the women's movement, asked Rosie O'Donnell to resume her place in the spotlight. Now, full disclosure here, I have never been a View fan. I like the women who are on there as entertainers. They're clever, they're funny, they, in their own right, are very talented, but it's largely through their fame as entertainers, barring Barbara Walters and whatever handful of journalists pose as the exception. It's because they're entertainers that they have access to be on this show. And so last I checked, even with all the modern conveniences that I have, I still only have 24 hours in a day. So I don't need to hear from Elizabeth Hasselbeck about anything. She's a softball player who led her Boston College team to big victory. She later married a football player, was a tennis shoe designer for Puma for 5 minutes, and otherwise has simply carried talking points for a conservative agenda. And if Elizabeth Hasselbeck was my neighbor, I'd be nice to her. I'd lend her my folding chairs or picnic cooler, but I wouldn't get involved in a conversation that included news of the day, politics, or religion. And so that's why I don't watch The View and never will. Moreover, I don't like it when women or men speak over each other and interrupt each other. This is theater. It's disrespectful theater that only sets the example for younger viewers that conversations are more about who can get in the louder word, the last word, or the more provocative word. But Rosie was indeed known for being provocative, for being loud, and for caring enough about many, many issues to return to the spotlight and play that role. Now, unlike her own show, Rosie had little control of The View's production. That was Barbara Walters' area because it essentially was Barbara's show. Rosie saw opportunities for improvement, but let's face it, at a table of alpha women, did she really expect that her ideas would be warmly received? So initially, Rosie filled the role as a progressive feminist with strong interest in women's issues and family issues and safety and peace. and her first celebrated day on The View. This was a big deal in media news, and she's returned to the show a number of times now. She was cordial and measured, but strong and opinionated.
All right, so first up, Woody Allen's daughter, Dylan, is claiming sexual abuse by her dad when she was just 7 years old. How do you feel about that?
I totally believe her.
You absolutely why?
Well,
now, her brother just came out and said...
You had sexual abuse yourself, so
I certainly did, and I'm very good friends with Mia Farrow, like very close friends. I've seen her as a mother. She's the best mother I've ever seen.
Yes,
but you know her brother just came out and said Mia poisoned them against their dad.
I do not believe that.
You don't believe that?
No, and if you read the custody decision by the prosecutor, you will understand that there was cause to prosecute, but they thought it would be too traumatic for the 7-year-old child, and he was not given any custody of those children. I firmly believe Dylan, and I believe Mia.
Okay, we have been having this discussion.
Okay, so since The View is Barbara Walters' show, and she never consulted Advanced TV Herstory about its formation, I honestly don't understand what the metrics of success are for the conversation that is held at the table of these alpha women. They are all strong women. They've got great opinions. They could all basically have their own shows. And for the most part, they're all likable. But Rosie's addition, according to her book Celebrity Detox, helped the ratings immensely. Evidently, it was struggling. And it probably goes to the fact that conflict sells. Conflict raises everyone's awareness and interest in the show. They want to tune in to see what's going to happen next. And maybe that's why I don't watch it. Now, The View's groundbreaking format was an intentional sense that the conversation was candid and direct. It was supposed to be coming right from these wonderful women seated in the chairs. But Rosie resisted wearing the audio device in her ear, this is how she recounts it in the book, by which she and the other women took direction from producers. Should we be disappointed to learn that the facts and the points and the statistics that these entertainers turned policy analysts rattled off weren't even in their brains to begin with? I guess I can side with Rosie on really not wanting to have to be part of that spoon feeding of information. Rosie didn't want others to program or direct her part of the conversation. She had led her own show and conducted her own interviews. She had this. So the controversy started brewing, and Rosie fell out of Barbara Walters' good graces. She was the bad girl. Was this just another fabricated measure of controversy, like the Trump and Rosie feud could have been, to keep the show in the public conversation? Let's look at how Entertainment Weekly covered it.
Here we go again. Rosie O'Donnell is feuding with her former colleagues on The View, and I can't even count what round this is. NBC's Jeff Rawson has the blow-by-blow.
It's the 2-year feud that keeps on giving. Rosie O'Donnell versus her former colleagues on The View. The latest jab from Rosie, a direct hit on Barbara Walters. While promoting her new NBC variety show, Rosie said this on a conference call with reporters. Barbara wanted everyone to believe and think and act as if the women on The View get along and they're really good friends. And you know, that's just not the reality. Thursday morning, Barbara hit back, never mentioning Rosie by name.
But there are some people who have done this show and then for years feel they have to dump on it, maybe for their own publicity. Yeah. And that not only hurts me, but I resent it.
Millions watched from home, including Rosie herself.
Some people who have done this show and then for years feel they have to dump on it, maybe for their own publicity. And that not only hurts me, but I resent it.
Webcam fired up. Rosie fired back on her website, referencing 2 previous co-hosts who were booted from the show.
I do not know what Star Jones and Debbie Matenopoulos did. But, whew, lady, she is pissed off.
Dripping with sarcasm online, Rosie wasn't done yet. On Late Night with Conan O'Brien, she came back for even more.
Listen, I don't want to dump on the show in order to benefit my own career, you know, to use it for publicity, because I didn't have a career before that show. So I'm very thankful to The View for the help that it's given me in my life. And I'm a big fan of the program and the producers.
Anyone who teaches leadership will tell you that you have to have leaders and you have to have followers. Leaders must lead regardless of how large their egos are. Otherwise, things falter. Barbara and Rosie clashed, and while, yes, ratings equate to money, Barbara's command of her show and resistance to changing it may not have made her the best role model. On the other hand, Rosie, as a team player, probably could have contributed her thoughts and ideas in a way that maybe Barbara would have found more welcoming. Maybe Rosie could have made Barbara think they were her ideas, really. Anyway, alpha women are much more effective when they have a common enemy and they are collaborating than when they are simply placed at a table and provided topics that are beneath their talents and their intellect. A look at this stand, which Rosie took with Elizabeth Hasselbeck, is out there for the public record. It puts Rosie on the right side of history of a topic that really neither of them is a first-hand expert in. It's all opinion.
Out there. I don't know
He doesn't have
any
a
strategy
plan.
that says, here's
It's
a
saying
big
to
date
who
we are
is-
going
He doesn't
to
have
our
a plan.
enemies. To your enemies,
The
this is when
enemies
we
in
are going
Iraq.
to pull out.
The enemies in Iraq.
Al-Qaeda?
Wait, the enemies in Iraq.
He didn't even go after
Elizabeth.
Osama bin Laden
Rosie.
when he was supposed to.
Wait, Joy. You just said our enemies in Iraq. Did Iraq attack us?
No, I'm saying Al-Qaeda.
Okay.
who is
Did
in
Iraq attack us, Elizabeth?
Iraq did not attack us,
Correct.
Rosie. We've been there before.
what do
I'm
you-
saying our enemies, Al-Qaeda. Are you hearing that?
I hear it, but where do you want to go, Bub?
This
We're
is
gonna.
a political discussion.
Right.
Don't interview each other. Just say what
if
you
you're
mean.
playing a game, okay? If you're playing a game and I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to throw to my wide receiver, wide right, okay? Do you do that? I'm going to do it in 2 seconds. What does that do for your enemy?
Well, you know what,
It gives them
Elizabeth?
time
If
to
the
plan.
enemy are innocent civilians, I don't want to play that kind of football.
The enemy are not innocent
Iraq
civilians.
didn't attack us.
Wait a minute.
I am not saying innocent
Don't yell at
civilians
each
are
other.
our enemy.
Please, let's have a
You know what?
conversation.
You get spun in the media. Rosie, big, fat, lesbian, loud Rosie, attacks innocent, pure Christian Elizabeth. And I'm not doing it for the rest of the
to. Let me
I'm
do
not doing it.
In 2016, Rosie made headlines again. Okay, smallish headlines, because it was Donald Trump, presidential candidate, who raised memories of their long-standing feud in the first presidential debate against Hillary Clinton. In this moment in time, alpha women across the country, indeed around the world, joined together in a shared cause of not only electing the first woman president, but also for calling out sexism and racism that stands in the way of equality for all. Giving as good as she gets and never backing down from a fight, Rosie O'Donnell has joined the esteemed club led by Senator Elizabeth Warren of prominent women who tweet and taunt, releasing hot air out of a balloon that seems to refill every day as Herstory counts down to Election Day. That's it, folks. You've been listening to Advanced TV Herstory. If you like what you've heard, please post a review at iTunes or at our hosting site, Libsyn, Libsyn. Look for this script and others from past segments at www.cynthiabemusabrams.com. That's also a place to get information if you're interested in having me speak on leadership or women in TV to your group or conference. Follow the podcast on Twitter. Our handle is @TVHerstory. Rosie O'Donnell has written 2 books, but I confess I only read the current of the 2, Celebrity Detox, and I heartily recommend it, 2007. Audio clips used in this segment come from montages compiled by and clips posted by other YouTube account holders. When it comes to the untold stories of women in and of TV, there is no shortage of content. So please stay tuned. And a big thank you to David Brown, who makes this content sound better and better with every show. Thanks most importantly to you for listening. I'm your host, Cynthia Bemis Abrams.